Hello and welcome back to the Cars Ireland YouTube channel. Now today we test out the updated for 2020 Suzuki Vitara, this time with hybrid power. Now I'll make absolutely no bones about it, I am a fan of the Vitara. Now I'm not a huge fan of this white, but there are some cool two-tone options that you can see on their website. There's a cool red with a black roof and black alloys, and that's just listed a bit. The white is a bit too white goods for my liking, but look, it's good. Up first, the boot. Now, it's a nice light boot and flies up good and easy. It's a very practical space. There's no kind of messing around. It's that same principle as I was saying earlier, where you have a square opening and a boot. There's no odd shapes, there's no odd storage areas, there's just two little bits in the corner and a floor that can be lifted up for extra space, pull back, and then you get a nice flat load area. 375 litres. You drop the seats down and you get more space. They go flat too, so that makes loading stuff in even easier. There are a couple of little hooks and a 12-volt charger. Yeah, it's a great boot, does its job. It's in around family hatchback size, but is a bit smaller than, say, the Duke. But overall, it works really well and is very straightforward and basic and does its job as it's supposed to. Good boot. Moving into the back. Well, it's not bad. I do have a bit of knee room, which is always nice. Feet are fine. Headroom is decent. Yeah, it's quite comfortable. I wouldn't have a huge amount of complaints. Seats are nice and squidgy and comfortable. There's no toys back here or gadgets. There's no USBs sitting in the armrest. No USBs here. Electric windows and a little magazine holder for the passenger side, but not for me. But other than that, it's okay. I don't know how 3 adults would fit, but 2 would be very comfortable and 3 kids would be fine. Speaking of kids, there are 2 ISOFIX points back here too. The doors open nice and wide, which I believe is always handy. It's a good space there to get in and out of. Back seats. So up front is all pretty nice too. Some of the materials are a bit on the cheaper side, like the door stuff, and some of this is kind of cheap. Other than that, it's pretty nice. The steering wheel is nicely coated in leather. The buttons on it are actually kind of soft touch and feel actually of better quality than what you might expect. There's good space for bottles and all sorts of other storage crap down here. Nice little spot for your phone. Air conditioning is also very straightforward, just 2 knobs and a couple of buttons. Underneath that you have a USB and a 12-volt charger. Quite a small glove box with what might be the most giant enormous manual I've seen in a long time. My god. You'd have fun reading that. Pop it back in. Seats are comfortable. You can adjust the steering wheel for reach and rake, so you have no issue getting comfortable. Yeah, seats are firm, but they're still comfortable. They don't look the most comfortable, but they're fine. I wouldn't have any complaints. I've done a few hundred kilometers in this already, and they've been perfectly fine. You have an old school handbrake here, and an old school key, which still looks like the one from my 2004 Vitara, which did surprise me when I picked it up. Huh? Old school. The infotainment screen does feel like it comes from about 10 years ago, and I suppose it does. It even has an SD card for the sat-nav. The only thing I really don't like is on the left-hand side you have a touchscreen for your volume rather than a knob, which is a bit of a detour for Suzuki. Normally it's all very straightforward, but that is irritating. You can connect Android Auto or Apple CarPlay through your USB down here, pop it into your phone. The only downside I see is that there's not, some of the cubbies and stuff aren't sized for modern smartphones, so even mine is a bit big and you don't really have anywhere to slot it, and then the wire is kind of hanging around the place. Now your entry-level Vitara costs about €23,000, and today we're in the second tier model, which is €25,700, and you can climb all the way to about 30 grand if you want 4-wheel drive. There's plenty of safety tech on board too. There's adaptive cruise control, which I just love. There's lane keep assist, there's blind spot monitoring, plenty of safety stuff, and it got a 5-star NCAP rating, which is always nice. I don't know how much you could really complain about it beyond maybe some of the materials, and visually it could do with an update. But if you like stuff simple, this is a great place to be. So for 2020, Suzuki have gone with an updated engine, and there is only one engine in the lineup, and it is a 1.4 4-cylinder with a turbocharger and a mild hybrid system. Now that mild hybrid system is only a 48-volt battery, so you never actually drive on electric power. It just sort of helps the engine out at times and kind of runs some of the ancillary things like air conditioning when the engine is off. So when you combine all that together, you get 130 brake horsepower, 235 newton meters of torque, and a 0 to 100 kilometers an hour time of 9.5 seconds. So all impressive figures, and especially that 0 to 100, that's nothing to be sniffed at in a little crossover. It is a nice little engine setup, and it's got nice torque delivery. There's a good little kick from about 2000 RPM, and it actually is happy enough to rev out to the red line. And refinement is surprisingly good too. You don't feel a huge amount through the cabin. It accelerates well. Yeah, it's a nice little engine. It's a great engine actually. It's very refined. I've been surprised at how refined it is. Even under hard acceleration, you don't feel it through your feet or through the cabin. It's well cosseted and away from you, and I wouldn't have any complaints on that little engine. Suzuki say it's the equivalent power output of a 2-litre petrol, and I suppose I kind of get that. It should prove relatively economical too, especially if your driving kind of suits that hybrid setup. Suzuki quote 50 miles per gallon, or about 5.7 litres per 100 kilometres, and your annual motor tax is only €190 too. So because you have that small battery, there is a bit of regen, and when you brake, it does feed some energy back into the batteries and charge them back up again. You kind of notice it when decelerating. Just it feels like it's pressing the brakes ever so slightly. Now I'm talking minuscule, but you do feel it just as you decelerate. It feels like a tiny pinch on the brakes. Up in front of the driver here, you have 2 analog gauges and a nice little digital centerpiece that'll tell you when it's just the engine or when the electric motor and battery are helping the engine out. So if I lift off, it tells me now the electric motor and the battery are helping the engine out. Go back to normal, and we're just on engine power again. Simples. Stop saying simples. One other situation where that little mild hybrid battery actually helps out quite a lot is in stop-start driving. It just gets back up and moving a bit quicker because it uses the battery for that stop-start situation. And in some cars, especially like an automatic diesel, stop-start is just a pain in the backside that you don't get with this setup. It's nice. Around town, the Vitara is very pleasant. The steering is very light, so you can maneuver around town without massive issues, but that light steering does not translate well to the more twisty stuff, shall we say. It's not the most engaging thing to drive, and you really do feel disconnected from what's going on up front. I'm not always sure where those front tires are. It kind of has a floaty feel to it at times, and there is a bit more body roll than you get in other crossovers. But it's not bad, it's just not particularly sporty. On the motorway, however, it's been very good. I think it helps that this particular model has active cruise control, lane keep assist, and blind spot monitoring. So you don't have to do a huge amount of work when you are on the motorway. The car does most of it. It's actually quite comfortable. You don't feel a huge amount through the suspension and up through your backside. But wind noise is a bit higher, especially when you're at those higher speeds. Just like the engine options, the gearbox options are very straightforward too. You only have one, a 6-speed manual, and it's not bad. It's a bit notchy at times, but you roll through the gears without any real issues. The only real option you have when it comes to drivetrain and stuff is you can spec 4-wheel drive or not. So we have the 2-wheel drive today, but you can also get the all-grip 4-wheel drive Suzuki setup, and you just know that's going to be good off-road because Suzuki have such a reputation for building the proper off-roader type stuff, and it feels like that's just right for a Suzuki. 4-wheel drive, Suzuki go hand in hand, and it's a perfect merge of greatness. So there you have it. That's our Vitara review. I've really liked this car, and I said it at the start, I've always liked Vitaras and I always will. I still like this one. It's a bit of a departure from maybe previous generations, which are a bit more rugged and a bit more obviously farm-based and have that sense of, what would you call it, go anywhere-ness. This still feels rugged, this still feels like it's built to last, and I'd say reliability is not an issue. But yeah, it's a nice little car, and I do like that engine. That engine is very impressive. If you'd like to search Cars Ireland for a Vitara, please do click on the link above. And we will be back next week, I hope, with another review. And until then, bye bye.